So, the Chargers are sitting at 7-4 right now. And after that absolute disaster in Jacksonville, a lot of fans are pretty much ready to write off this season. I get it. That loss was brutal, and having to sit with it for 2 weeks during the bye, that's torture. No doubt about it. But yesterday, I was sitting there and analyzing the whole season, and it actually made me feel good about the Chargers. Yeah, I'm not covering anything or trying to be super optimistic here. I actually found something good about the Chargers, and that's what I want to share with you right now. What's up, Chargers fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Chargers. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Bolts. Obviously, everyone is feeling down because of that Jacksonville game. It was bad, like really bad, in all 3 phases. But here's the thing. If you just erase that Jacksonville disaster for a second and look at the 3 games before it, especially that Pittsburgh game, you see a completely different team. After watching that Pittsburgh game, I was thinking the Chargers defense is going to be the unit that carries this team through the rest of the year and maybe even into the playoffs. And honestly, I still believe that. I know, after Jacksonville, that sounds crazy, but hear me out. Let's talk about what actually happened in that Jacksonville mess. The Chargers have been grinding since training camp started. They went to Canton for a Hall of Fame game, which meant an extra preseason game. Then they flew all the way to Brazil for the season opener. After that, it was cross-country trips to New York, Miami, Tennessee, and then Jacksonville. And look, I'm not trying to make excuses for an NFL team because these guys travel well and they're professionals, but that's a lot of miles. And it was another 10 a.m. kickoff on the West Coast. Sometimes things just don't click, and if you watch that first quarter, you knew it probably wasn't going to be a great day. But here's what really matters. The Chargers are still 7-4. They're 3-0 in the division. You can't take away those first 3 weeks. Those wins against the Raiders, Broncos, and Chiefs matter. They're sitting in an enviable position right now because of what they did early in the season. And now let me share an interesting point about how to look at the rest of the season. Basically, broke it down into 3 buckets. First, how do you beat the Raiders this week? Second, what's the path to the postseason? And third, once you get there, how can you actually do damage? Because let's be real, what happened in Houston last year cannot happen again. They got embarrassed in that playoff game. And with guys like Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater out, it's going to be even harder. But we've seen flashes from this team that show they can compete. So now let's talk about this bye week, because timing is everything. Could it have come at a worse time emotionally? Probably not. The team had to sit with that Jacksonville loss for 2 whole weeks. But physically, this might have been exactly what they needed. Think about their schedule. The proof is in the pudding when it comes to the East Coast. The Chargers have not played well on the East Coast this year. They struggled against the Giants in Week 4. They didn't play well against the Dolphins for most of that game and had to come back miraculously at the end. And that Tennessee game, when the Titans score 14 points in a blink because of a special teams disaster and the pick 6, that's not good football. So yeah, this bye was needed. The team needed to recharge. And honestly, not much went right for them during the bye in terms of the standings. The Chiefs beat the Colts. The Texans crept back into contention. The Colts are still 8-3. The Jaguars barely squeaked out a win against the Cardinals. The Bills dropped the game, so now they're jumbled up with the Chargers in the standings. Right now, there are 7 playoff spots and 10 teams competing for them. 3 teams are going to be left out, and the Chargers need to make sure they're not one of them. When you look at the path to the playoffs, there are 3 games that could decide the Chargers' season. Obviously, this Sunday against the Raiders is crucial. You have to take care of business against the teams you're supposed to beat. Then there's that game at Arrowhead against the Chiefs. And finally, the home game against the Texans, where they'll be wearing those Navy uniforms again. Those 3 games might determine everything. Sure, you want to win them all. You want to beat the Cowboys, the Eagles, and that Week 18 game against the Broncos that may or may not mean anything. But those 3 games, starting with the Raiders, are absolutely critical. And can we talk about that Texans defense for a second? If you watch them destroy Josh Allen and the Bills on Thursday night, you know what's coming. That defense looked mean. They looked fast and hungry. The Chargers are going to have to face that in a few weeks, and it's not going to be pretty if they're not prepared. But here's the thing. If the Chargers do what it takes to make the playoffs this year, they're going to have proven that they can actually win once they get there. Because think about it. To make the playoffs from their current position, they're probably going to have to beat that Texans defense or win on Monday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles or go to Arrowhead and get a win. These aren't easy games. So if they're making the playoffs, even at 7-4 right now, it means they beat some really good playoff caliber teams along the way.
Initially, I was thinking, what's the point of making the playoffs if you're just going to lose when you get there? But when I deeply analyze the situation, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. If this team makes the playoffs, they'll have earned it by beating legitimate contenders. And when you look at the AFC this year, who really scares you? Like, which team in the AFC is truly dominant across all three units? I couldn't name one team that stands out as the big bad wolf of the AFC. The Bills are probably the class of the conference right now, even at 7-4. The Texans have a Super Bowl caliber defense, but a mediocre offense. The Steelers, we saw what they are. The Chiefs are beatable. The Broncos have another Super Bowl caliber defense, but can you really trust that offense in January? So why not the Chargers? Why not close the season the right way, get into the postseason, and see what happens? And here's something. If Rashawn Slater was playing left tackle right now, we might be talking about the Chargers as the team to beat in the AFC. The injuries to Slater and Joe Alt were crushing blows. There was no playbook for losing the best tackle tandem in football and still staying competitive, but they've hung in there, and that deserves credit. The offensive line has been pieced together, and while there's definitely room for criticism about what could have been done in the offseason, they're still in football games. All these teams have injuries. Some have been crushed by them, like Cincinnati and Washington, but the Chargers are still in it because they have a franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert, a coach in Jim Harbaugh who knows how to win, and a defense that can do damage. Now, one of the biggest reasons for hope is the return of Amarian Hampton. When this guy comes back from injured reserve, it could be a game changer. There's speculation about whether we'll see him this week against the Raiders. And honestly, the Chargers should be able to beat the Raiders without him. But getting him back in the fold, even just for a few touches, would be huge heading into that Chiefs game and the Monday Night Football matchup. Hampton is going to make the offensive line look better. He's going to help with time of possession, which was a massive problem in Jacksonville. The previous 3 games, the Chargers were dominating time of possession with like 39 minutes, 37 minutes, and 35 minutes. Against Jacksonville, 22 minutes. They couldn't get anything going. Kimani Vidal deserves a lot of credit for holding it down while Hampton was out. The dude got cut this year and proved he belongs in this league. That's impressive. But Hampton brings this offense to another level. We saw that small sample size in New York where he almost single-handedly won that game for the Chargers despite 14 penalties and mistakes after mistake. Seeing what he looks like in December could be huge for this team. So, what do the Chargers need to figure out during this bye week? 2 things, really. First, they have to stop the run. It's been a problem all year. That Miami game with Devon A-Chain, the Washington game with Brian Robinson Jr. running wild, and then Jacksonville rushing for 192 yards. The run defense has to shore up. Second, the offensive line. This is where it gets interesting to see if they make a lineup change. Maybe they put Jamari Sawyer left tackle. Back in 2022, when Slater went down, Sawyer was pretty serviceable at left tackle. Maybe they try him there for a game and see how it goes. Trevor Penning just got here, so who knows if he's ready. And here's a weird one. Bobby Hart actually played pretty well in the few games he's been in for the Chargers. So maybe they tinker with the lineup a bit. It all starts in the trenches, man. If you're going to win football games in January, you need stout defensive and offensive lines. The Chargers have the franchise quarterback. They have the weapons. Hopefully, they'll have the running game with Hampton and Vidal. Special teams have been up and down this year, but they have the best kicker in football in Cameron Dicker. So show us what you got these last 6 weeks. Show us what you got across the defensive and offensive lines, because if those guys play serviceable football, this team has a real shot.